ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय जन्माद्यस्य यतो अन्वयादितरतश्च अर्थेषु अभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. We now enter the 55th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Bhagavatam. We just finished the beautiful wedding of Krishna and Rukmini, the most auspicious wedding, and what their union symbolizes also. Now, Shukra Brahma Rishi continues by giving the story of Pradyumna. Pradyumna is the son of Krishna and Rukmini, and he is also a partial expansion of Krishna. So whenever we describe Vasudeva, even in the very first Skandha, it was described as having four aspects. Vasudeva is the primary aspect, and his expansions are Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. And these are the four that appear even during the avatar of Ram as the three brothers with Ram. So Ram is Vasudeva, Lakshmana is Sankarshana, Bharata is Pradyumna, and Shatrughna is Aniruddha. Similarly, in the Krishna avatar, they on the other hand appear as son and grandson. So Krishna's elder brother is Sankarshana Balaram, as we have already seen. Krishna's son is Pradyumna and his grandson will be Aniruddha. So in this chapter, Shukra Brahma Rishi gives the story of Pradyumna. So he says that Pradyumna, who is a partial expansion of Krishna, wanted to be born as the son of Krishna. So it is also said that the very same Pradyumna took the form of Cupid, that is Kamadeva, and he was burned by Shiva once. So there is a story of how Kamadeva, the Cupid, was, or he is also called Madana. So this Cupid Madana was once burned by Shiva. He is also called Kandarpa. He's got many names. So this Kandarpa or Cupid was burned by Shiva, and after that he decided to take the form of the son of Krishna, because he is after all an expansion of Krishna. So it is said that he was born to Rukmini and Krishna as Pradyumna the son. It says Saeva Jato Vaidarbhya Krishna Virya Samudbhavaha Pradyumna iti Vikhyata Sarvato Anavama Pituhu. So he is born to Rukmini and Krishna, and he looked exactly like his father Krishna. But the strange story of Pradyumna is that as soon as he is born, a demon called Shambara, he is told as a prophecy that he will be killed by Pradyumna. So this demon, in order to prevent that, he comes when Pradyumna is born and he is hardly a few days old, less than 10 days old, and he kidnaps the little baby Pradyumna and he throws him into the ocean and goes away. So it's a very strange story. We'll see how the story unfolds. So Pradyumna is born, and the Shambara, so as always, whenever these demons are given a prophecy, just as Kamsa was given a prophecy and he couldn't let go of Krishna's thought, and he himself invited Krishna to Mathura and got killed. So here Shambara, he was given a prophecy that he'll be killed by Pradyumna, and therefore he wanted to preempt it. So he came searching for Pradyumna as soon as he is born, and he stole him away from the chamber when Rukmini was sleeping next to the little baby, and then threw this baby into the ocean, because Dwaraka, as we already saw, is right on the ocean, and that's where Rukmini was, and Krishna is there, and Pradyumna is born there. So Pradyumna is kidnapped and thrown into the ocean. But as strangely as it unfolds, a mighty fish swallows this little baby, And as soon as this fish swallows it, instantly the fish is also caught by a fisherman. And as soon as the fisherman catches the fish, he brings it back to the very same Shambara. So we can see how, very symbolically, it shows here that if one is meant to avoid death, and if but he is destined to die, then whatever he does, it chases him. So this baby who was thrown into the ocean by Shambara went into the mouth of a mighty fish, and the fish went into a fisherman's net, and the fisherman brought the fish because this is a very unusually huge fish, so he thought he'll make some good money. So he brings to the palace of Shambara, and he gives it to the cooks and gets money and goes. The cooks now use a knife to cut the fish, and as soon as they cut the fish, they find a beautiful baby there. And by some mystic power, the baby is still alive, and therefore they immediately handle or hand over the baby to Mayavati. And Mayavati is a main attendant of Shambara. So she is actually none other than the wife of Kamadeva, who's called Rati. And when Kamadeva was burned by Shiva, Rati was very depressed, and then she prayed to Shiva, and Shiva told her, you go to this demon Shambara and be in his palace as a servant, and you will eventually get reunited with your husband. So everything happens in a nice mystical way. Shiva knows exactly how it will unfold when Krishna appears and Pradyumna appears as his son, who's none other than Cupid Kandarpa. So Mayavati, of course, doesn't know this, that this baby is Kandarpa, is her past husband. So Mayavati is given this baby, this principal servant of Shambara. But as soon as she gets the baby, she has her doubts because somehow she feels something in her heart seeing this baby, which is not a normal feeling of just seeing a baby. And then instantly Narada appears there and tells her exactly who the baby is. He tells her how the baby was born as Pradyumna, who is none other than her husband, and how he went into the fish's stomach and then now came back to her. So this Mayavati was very happy because she was, of course, Rati, the wife of the Cupid Kandarpa, who had been burned to ashes by Shiva, and therefore she raised this baby with love. And it is said that the baby grew up in no time to look exactly like Krishna and to look very beautiful, the most handsome young man. And as soon as he grows into a handsome young man, this Mayavati, this Rati, who is got a lot of mystical powers, she remains young, and therefore now she falls in love with him and wants him as her husband again. Initially, the boy Pradyumna is also called as Karshni. Why he is called Karshni? Because he is born to Krishna. Son of Krishna is Karshni. So this Karshni or Pradyumna, he is not aware initially that he was the husband of this Mayavati in the past life, and therefore he only sees her as the maid servant who raised her. But now the same person is very young and she is approaching him as his consort. So he is confused and asks her, I'm not understanding. Then she explains to him, she says to him, you are none other than the son of Krishna Narayana, and you were stolen away by the demon Shambara when you were a young baby, and I am your wife from your past life, Rati. And not only that, when you were less than 10 days old, the Shambara threw you into the ocean, and a fish devoured you, and somehow you made it alive and you were brought here. Therefore, your job is twofold. One is to kill this demon Shambara because he tried to kill you when you were a baby. And also, your mother, especially, is in great grief because Rukmini was sleeping when this kidnapping happened of her little baby who was few days old. So, ever since, Rukmini is in great grief having missed her newborn first baby. So this Rati or Mayavati tells this Pradyumna that you also have to console your mother. We have to take care of her, but first you have to kill Shambara because you are none other than the son of Narayana. She says, Bhavan Narayana Sutaha Shambarena Ahruto Grihat. So you are the son of Narayana, son of Krishna. You were taken away from the house, kidnapped by this Shambara. And then further she says, Aham te adikrita patni ratik kamo bhavan prabhu. She says, I am your appointed wife and you are also none other than Kamadeva Kandarpa. So now that he knows about this, he goes to challenge Shambara, and this Mayavati also gives him a special power called Mahamaya, by which he can employ mystical powers in a battle, because otherwise Shambara is very powerful. He's a demon who has all kinds of mystic powers himself. So Pradyumna approaches Shambara and challenges him to a combat, and then Shambara falls for the trap. He gets triggered, he gets angry, enraged, and he comes to fight with Pradyumna, and he throws his mace at Pradyumna, but Pradyumna easily avoids it and throws his own mace at him, so they start fighting. And this Shambara employs all his demoniac illusory powers, and he rains down a volley of missiles on Pradyumna. He employs all kinds of weapons, such as weapons that look like snakes and weapons that look like fire and all the rest. But Pradyumna, who also got this mystical power Mahamaya, was able to render all his missiles ineffective. And then finally, after completely neutralizing all his weapons, Pradyumna takes a very sharp sword and instantly beheads the Shambara and kills him. And that's this way, Pradyumna in fact fulfills the prophecy that he will be the one who kills Shambara. So now everybody is glorifying him. He is showered with flowers by all because this Shambara was an evil demon and he is now killed. Now Mayavati or Rati, the wife of Pradyumna, she reminds Pradyumna that we have to go to Dwaraka because your mother is in grief, so let's go there. So they go by air because Mayavati especially has all these magical powers. So she takes her husband Pradyumna and they go by air to Dwaraka. And as soon as they land in Dwaraka, they land directly within the palace of Krishna, the inner quarters where the women are there. And it is said that all the women were completely bewildered because by now, though we will see later, Krishna has many other consorts. Due to various reasons, Krishna marries many other women. Rukmini is his primary consort. We already saw the wedding. But after this, Krishna has many other consorts. So some of the stories of how Krishna marries them will all come in the following chapters. But here, to complete the story of Pradyumna, Shukabrahma Rishi jumps forward to where Pradyumna has already grown up, as we saw, and meanwhile Krishna has many other consorts, many other wives. So when Pradyumna reaches the inner quarters, all of them are confused because they all think it's their husband because he looks exactly like Krishna. So they all wonder and they are very bewildered. Who is this? He looks exactly like Krishna. But then they notice that there are a couple of differences. He doesn't have the special Kaustubha gem. There is a gem called Kaustubha that Krishna alone wears. And there is Srivatsa, a mark on his chest, which signifies Mother Lakshmi. So these two are not there, and therefore they recognize that this is not Krishna, but this is so exactly like him. So they are all amazed. And Rukmini comes out hearing this commotion that all the other women are seeing someone looking like Krishna. So Rukmini sees him and immediately she recalls her own lost son. And then she looks at this young man and wonders who is this. He's got lotus like eyes and he is looking of the same age as the son I would have had if he had grown up by now. So who is this young man who is the mother of this young man and who is this young woman who has come with him as his wife? My own son must be the same age, and matter of fact, he must have similar features. And then the more she looks closely, it suddenly occurs to her that she is actually filled with maternal affection. And so she is now certain that this is actually none other than her own son, who was kidnapped and lost when he was mere days old. So when Rukmini was thus speculating, Krishna comes there along with Devaki and Vasudeva. Devaki and Vasudeva are the parents, as we know. So Krishna comes with them, and Krishna keeps quiet. He knows everything as always, but he simply keeps quiet, and then Narada appears there and reveals the whole story. It says, Vijñātārtho api Bhagavan tushni masa janardanaha narado akathayat sarvam Shambara haranadikam. So Janardana, another beautiful name for Krishna, Bhagavan Janardana, he simply remains silent even though he knows the whole story, what has happened. In fact, the very reason all this pastime happened of Pradyumna being kidnapped is all to fulfill a prophecy, because we can see how everything is linked. Shiva's boon to Mayavati that she will find her husband in Shambara's palace itself had to be made true. The prophecy that Shambara has to be killed by Pradyumna had to be made true. So all of this happens by divine arrangement. This is all to show that how every event is connected to every event. Many times we want to pick one event as favorable, but we want to avoid other events, or to put it in a different way, when we are very happy with a particular moment, we want that moment to repeat. But when there is a moment of sadness that was there before, or a loss or anything else, we don't want that, without recognizing that without that moment of loss, this moment of happiness would not have come. Every moment is linked to every moment. So if we choose one moment, we have to choose all moments. In other words, we have to surrender to all of life. We cannot choose. So this can be seen in a subtle way in the story, how every event is linked. And that's why Rukmini going through this misery was necessary. Pradyumna being kidnapped was necessary for all the prophecies to be fulfilled, and now he is back. So Narada reveals the whole story of all that happened, how Shambara kidnapped him, how he grew up, and how he killed Shambara, and now he is back. So hearing all this as a great miracle, in fact, because just escaping alive from the ocean was a great miracle, and then to grow up, and then to kill the demon, and then to be married to the very woman who saved him, all of this was a great miracle. So they all considered him as if come back from dead. And so Devaki and Vasudeva and Krishna and Balaram themselves, as well as Rukmini, all of them embraced both Pradyumna and his wife Rati. It says Devaki Vasudevascha Krishna Ramo Tatastriyaha Dampatito Parishvajya Rukmini cha Yayur Mudam. So all of them hugged this couple, Pradyumna and Rati. Pradyumna is also called as Rukminya because he is a son of Rukmini. He is called Rukminya. He is son of Krishna, so he is called Karshni. He has many names. But his primary name is Pradyumna, which is the expansion of Vasudeva, as we already saw. So this boy has come back alive. So all of Dwaraka is also happy. And it is said that even the wives of Krishna, who were all stepmothers to Pradyumna, they were often confused because of the similarity of looks of Pradyumna and Krishna, and therefore they were always finding that they were constantly having to look carefully to make sure that this is the young son and not their husband. And he was so attractive otherwise that it is said that all the women of Dwaraka were all attracted to him because he is looking exactly like Krishna, and also he has got the energy of Kandarpa. So Kandarpa, as we say, is Cupid and is the partial expansion of Krishna. And this is also giving an important message that Kandarpa signifies sexual attraction, and that is in fact an expansion of Krishna himself. And therefore, there are many who, especially many other traditions where sexual activity is itself seen as a sin of some kind, whereas that is not the right understanding. And Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Prajanaschasmi Kandarpaha. He says, among those who are among all causes for procreation, I am the sexual impulse or the god of love, Cupid. So, of course, there are many causes for procreation. It's a very sacred process how a child is born, but the primary cause is the attraction between man and woman, and that very attraction is sacred if it is meant for procreating. So that is why Krishna says, in fact, in another verse in Gita also, Krishna says, Dharma aviruddho bhuteshu kamosmi. So he says, I am that sexual energy that is in alignment with dharma. So when sexual activity is perverted, then that is what is wrong. But when it is in alignment with dharma and therefore it is meant for procreation, then that is the right sacred energy that makes the sacred human birth possible. And therefore, Krishna says in two different verses in the Gita that I am that energy that brings forth procreation, and that is Kandarpa. That's why he says Prajanaschasmi Kandarpaha. And that Kandarpa is his expansion, Pradyumna, here we see. So Pradyumna, who is Cupid himself, is an expansion of Krishna, and he signifies or embodies the dharmic sexual energy, and therefore he is found attractive by everyone. And he is married to Rati, who is the wife of Kamadeva or Cupid. And thus the story of Pradyumna is beautifully narrated by Shukabra Rishi in this chapter. And with this, we see the whole story of Pradyumna. Going forward, we'll of course see we'll go back in time, in fact, because even before Pradyumna got married and came back, there are many other pastimes of Krishna in terms of marrying Satyabhama, Jambavati, and many other consorts. So we'll see all that in the coming chapters. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.